we think that the problem is at school today is that there are religious barriers preventing an individual to opt into this medical treatment or things that could possibly save their lives when they're on the brink of death. We think that religion has dictated the choice in which they are in a position to make, they would have made if not for religious beliefs or religious barriers, right? We think that it is important that when the collective right of a person to live is an issue, we think that religion should then take the backseat into this debate. Now, I'm going to structure my speech in a way. First, I'm going to tell you the problem. I've already told you. I'm going to go on to who are these individuals exactly. Then I'm going to go on to these religious exemptions and why is it justified to remove them when they're on the brink of dying. Firstly, who are these individuals? These individuals, such as Jehovah's Witnesses or the Jews, they believe that God is in control of their lives. They believe that God has had a plan for them. They know where they're supposed to live, and God knows when they're supposed to die. And thank you for the characterization. They do not want to unnaturally prolong their lives beyond what God wants them to. So that is why they do not opt into this medical treatment, even though they want to, even though they want themselves to live. We think that's extremely harmful, and it's even more harmful when they impose this choice upon their children who cannot consent, who do not have a say, because the parents are the guardians of these children. At the end of the day, it's the parental rights over the children's rights to live or to obtain any form of safety net, such as vaccination, organ transplant, blood transfusion, and etc. Secondly, religious exemptions. This means that a person refuses treatment in the name of religious purposes that is necessary to save your life and for the collective good of the society, like I've told you before. Therefore, our stance is simple. We want to remove this form of religious beliefs when they are involuntarily put in a position whereby the doctor can then ignore their wishes or ignore their religious background and give them this form of drugs or form of medical treatment. We're okay with the doctors and the state enforcing and administering drugs even though they don't agree to it. We think that the justification is simple. God will not condemn them because they are blameless and this is an involuntary act. Because, for example, in a rape situation, rape victims are not to be blamed because it's the rapist that's supposed to be blamed and he is condemned to hell. Same here. We're okay with being blamed on our side of the house. We're okay if they think that we're going to go to hell because we do not opt into that form of belief. We do not subscribe to the form of religion. So we're okay with that because they are blameless at the end of the day. We think that if a Jehovah's Witness is involved in a car accident and it's not their fault, they did not opt into that situation, they did not consent to being on the verge of dying, and they did not want to die anyway, we think that our mechanism is fine. Once their life is endangered, they're almost at the brink of dying. Even if doctors know of their religious background, doctors should then ignore it and administer the drugs to them forcefully. We're fine with that. Moving on to my first 2 points. Role of the state. Why should the state supersede a person's right to religion? 2 levels. Firstly, when you harm yourself and when you impose harm onto society as a whole. And secondly, I'll talk to you extensively on the role of a doctor in today's debate. Before I move on, sure.
If the person is not religious, he would deny the religious exemption in the first place. So your case have to operate on people who actually opt and want to go through the religious exemption. Sure.
If they do not opt into this, if they're a religious person and then they voluntarily do not want to go, then we're fine with that. We're talking about people who are at the verge of dying, but then they do not have that choice to tell the doctors that, hey, I want to opt into this because it is their mantra that they should die because God has made them such that their lifespan is supposed to end at that point of time. We think that if you voluntarily do not want to opt into it, it's fine. But we think that state has a prerogative to impose a form of mandatory vaccination for the best interest of yourself and society. We told it that state will take a first and foremost stance compared to religion when the safety of people and yourself is at stake. The role of the state. We think that we've seen trends, right, like how Mississippi and West Virginia already has a strict mandatory vaccination policy. In April 2015, USA took a mandatory vaccination policy to the next level. States are beginning to opt into the system, even though majority of the people there are, Christians and Jews and etc. Because in these states, religious parents have disallowed their kids to have a choice to opt into vaccination, even though their lives are at risk. Even though when they go into like a bigger group of society, when they integrate with school children and etc., those people may not be vaccinated and they can spread those diseases. These children never consented to being put in that risk or put in that position of being exposed to this form of disease. As a this was as a result of last year's measles outbreak in California, Disneyland, the biggest form of outbreak in the last 20 years in December 2014. We think that this is an incentive for state to then take this strict mandatory policy in order to protect a larger group of society, as well as these vulnerable children who have no voice into this debate. They can never tell their parents, Mom, yes, I know I'm a Jew, but I want to opt into this system because I don't want to put my life at risk. They will never have that platform, or they will never, their voices will never be heard because it's suppressed by their religious parents who tell them that, you know what, you're going to go to hell if you do this. You know what, I denounce you from my family, from my bloodline. I think that's morally abhorrent. We're not okay with that. When do states proceed? First, when you impose harm on yourselves, we talked to you about the Church of Alien Jesus, right? That cult that asks its members to harm themselves, such as committing mass suicides, and we denounce that form of religion or the form of practice in that religion as illegitimate, right? What happened? Those church leaders were arrested, and we think that is fine when the state puts the lives of these people, the collective group of society, at a higher pedestal compared to the practice of religion they opted into, which is not even true to begin with. It is more harmful that you impose harm onto yourselves, and that's why state has the prerogative to tell you to wear seatbelts or to tell you that you're not supposed to drink when you drive. Because at the end of the day, state prioritizes your right to life and the safety of yourself at first and foremost, right? Secondly, why is this important for the collective good of society? Because of the social contract. People opt into this social contract. They surrender part of their rights to the state as a form of regulation. In return, they pay tax and they contribute actively, productively in society. We think that you harm the larger group of society when you put yourself at risk, or when these people are then suppressed by religion. We think that's morally abhorrent. Practices such as in India, where you burn your wife, is a practical harm not only to yourself but to your wife and to the family members, immediate or extended family members. It promotes self-harm against yourself as well as harm against other people. We think that it's a state's prerogative to then save them. The states, yes, they should respect your right to religion, but when it comes at the expense of harming yourself and harming the rights of other people, such as your children, your family members, and the larger group of society, which never consented to being exposed to their risk or exposed to their harm, we're not okay with that. We think that doctors have a higher moral duty in this debate to then ignore the rights of these parents or these religious people and forcefully administer these drugs in the name of the best interest of people under the state's policy. We're very proud to.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Prime Minister, for that speech. Can I read the proposition?
Sorry, about something else. Look, I'll do a bit of characterization of how the debate should go, but let's put it simple. It's not simply about children getting vaccinated, but you need to focus more on people who are really in need of medical procedure, and that's something that you want to put out. I'll integrate most of my rebuttals into how I explain the role of doctors and how doctors should actually respect the choices of these people make of religion, even because it is part of their identity and it's part of how they run their daily life. But let's put it simple here to negate the idea of vaccination and the role that you want to play. First thing first, state put up that mandatory because they respect you can be a martyr towards your religion, that you want to sacrifice yourself for God when you see the time. But they never acknowledge you putting your children to be a martyr for religion. That's where they draw the line of you harming or imposing your idea of religion towards your children. State never actually deny your children to actually act on certain religion practice that doesn't actually harm them in the first place. Those are the kind of things that state respect, but they draw a line when these children are harmed, and that's the mandatory line that we see today. Moving on further down the line, when you are adults, state respect all of your decisions, even in medical terms. When you go into procedures of chemotherapy or any kind of procedure that is maybe surgery that is harmful towards your life, they ask you and ask your informed choice, irrespective of you making that choice based on your religion, based on your family members, based on your identity. If you deny that right to get that surgery, doctor or state cannot impose you to get that surgery, even if it leads to death. even if that you not taking that surgery leads to death, because that's the kind of consent that you get and you place in the end of the day. That's the role of doctors, and I'll explain more later. Before I go any further, yes.
States also save you from irrational decisions. Like if state don't think you're saving enough money for your retirement, state impose compulsory retirement funds on you. So in that point, states do have some say over individual choices.
Well, I'm pretty sure saving up money is not exactly an irrational decision if I want to go to Bali or I don't want to go to Bali at the end of this month. But let's take it like this. Those are the kind of decisions you make at the end of your day within your own daily life, irrespective of rational or irrational. But those kind of decisions are also part of your identity, and you need to, state needs to respect that. There's a line that I'll tell you later what state would do, what kind of decision state do not cross. First thing first, they want to characterize who are these people, and that everyone in religion suddenly opt into this procedure. We say no. Most of the time, not everyone within your religion will always opt into the procedure. It's not something that because you're a Muslim, you cannot get, because you're a Christian, you cannot get contraception, because you're a Mormon, you cannot actually get blood transfusion. There are also times when you do opt out of that situation. Even when life-threatening situation, there are times when Mormon or Jehovah Witness saying that they want to opt out because they want to live. Irrespective, you will respect that choice. This explains that there is no imposition. Just because you subscribe to a certain religion, you are imposed to get certain medical treatment or not getting certain medical treatment at all. By their logic, there will not be medical advancement because there's a lot of things that religion don't allow, every religion don't allow you to perform certain medical procedure towards other people. Thus, medical advancement cannot happen in the first place at the end of the day. But what goes down further down the line, the question is, do these people actually make that choice within the right way? First thing first, why do they make this choice? They make this choice as part of their identity, irrespective of religion, their family, or your friend. That's an inalienable right of you to actually express who you are. We believe that maximizing your own happiness because of our identity will make that a legitimate choice. We are for making sure you can be respected your choice and maximize the happiness of yourself, irrespective if it leads to death, because that's the kind of life that you choose to live. We do not believe in how they put it, just because everyone would put in an involuntary situation that they die, that means that you can put it out like that. We believe there's no religion would actually voluntarily die in the first place. Religion, minus ISIS. Let's go on. What do these people actually opt into? The decision that they make is simple. What kind of role do doctors play within the hospital? Irrespective of any kind of surgery, when it's life-threatening, doctors usually give you a kind of information to make sure that you make a voluntary choice and to make sure you make an informed choice in the first place. Irrespective of what makes you sway within your choice, doctors do not question, but doctors follow. That is the respect that they have towards the kind of treatment that you as a person and you as a patient want, even if it leads to death. There are people who deny certain cancer treatment because they see that way. There are people who deny organ donation, and those are not people that necessarily make choices because of religion. And we believe that any kind of choices that they make, irrespective of what, is part and in reflection towards their identity. But why is that important? A lot of the problem that is facing in society right now, even within their case, because one, they do not establish that doctor has the duty to actually care towards these people. This duty usually comes when these people make an informed choice that they want to get treatment or they do not want to get treatment in the first place. Then that is where the problem, all of this problem within legal that they want to talk about comes in. The whole problem when their side is that people actually jump the gun and make the decision for these patients. There's a lot of time these patients do not consent to it. But what happens after that? It affects how these patients would live their life at the end of the day. Because these are decisions made because of your own identity and on your life. But when you don't respect that decision, what happens towards these people? They will continue their life living the life of a guilt, saying that they should have died, they should have done the work of God that they've been placed on this earth. They cannot live their life properly after that because they already think that they have fulfilled their role. But they're extending the life is because of people, non-believers within their religion, that are trying to impose ideals on them, and they will never believe it, and they will continuously reject how society functions and how people around them will treat them, because they believe these are also the kind of people that are trying to reject them from fulfilling their life or fulfilling their identity within the religion. We believe you jumping the legal consequences when doctors actually say that whether you want to take that treatment or you do not want to take that treatment is harmful in itself. When you give them make that choice, voluntary choice, then all of this harmful, then you can put the accountability towards the doctor. But at that point in time, when they do choose to not take that treatment, we believe you need to respect their choices they make. Irrespective of whatever choices that they make, we still believe it needs to be to maximize their happiness, to maximize how they perform their identity, and to maximize what they believe in their life and how their life is being fulfilled. We don't think the life that they want to walk is the life that is being imposed on them by other people's choices. Let them live the life that they want to choose, even if they want to choose that. If they maximize their happiness, we're fine with that.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Leader of Opposition, to conclude the case beside government. And I have Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
Here. We had two parts in our case. Firstly, on the individuals themselves, and secondly, on the society that they are in, how that choices will affect the society. They have only engaged with one part of that argument, on the individuals themselves. They have never engaged with Sharon's point on how your decision to not take a vaccination, your decision to not take vaccine will affect the society as a whole. They never engage with that. We see when you actively take a decision that will harm the larger good of society, the state has the prerogative, the state has the right to intervene and tell you no, that your religious practices can take a backseat because we need to prioritize the greater good of society. Because you not taking a vaccine will affect other people if you are infected with disease that are contagious. And the state has the prerogative to do that. No responses whatsoever. But nevertheless, all engaged with their case. They started out by saying that the state respect people's right to religion. We say, yeah, we respect their right too. If you want to go to pray, we do not harm you from going to pray. We respect it so long and so forth that there are no harms to other people and there are no harms to themselves. They blatantly lie when they say that the states are, listen down, the state respect when you can sacrifice yourself. No, you cannot sacrifice yourself. The state, buddy, you cannot just go, I'm going to burn myself because of my religion. Dear God, take me. No, the state bans those sort of practices. The same way in India, when you want to sacrifice your wife, sacrifice your wife and burn it. Because she specifically said we draw the line when there's a harm, and that is our case. We respect all of your right to religion, but we draw the line when there's a right, when there are harms, when there's harm being done. And secondly, they said that they can opt out if they don't want to go to hospitals and things. Obviously, we cannot do anything about it. If you're sick and you do not want to go to the hospital, we're not going to send agents to your house and send you to the hospital. The debate that we are talking about is when you're in a hospital and when you're on the bed and the only option for you to live is to blood transfusion. And you rejecting that offer merely because of religion and religion only. And that's why we say we do not give a damn. We are going to give you that blood transfusion because we have a duty of the state and your religious practices, your religious belief can take a back seat. And secondly, they talk about part of their identity. We are not taking, you can't explicitly tell me that your only identity is to religion. We are not infringing on your other identity. We're only taking this one part of identity that could cause harm to you as society, and that's the only minor one that we are infringing. And secondly, they talk about maximizing happiness. We say no, the state doesn't necessarily allow you to maximize happiness whenever you want. For example, if you drink and drive, it makes you happy. We don't allow that. If you want to commit suicide, if it makes you happy, we still ban that. We still talk to people, we still do not allow them to commit suicide. We always bring them out of the ledge. Please sit down.
And then they talk about informed choice. What if you want to reject chemo? That is a different discussion as a whole, because that does not involve religion. If you are, that does not involve religion. That involves discussion on you going to chemotherapy and living a suboptimal life, or you living a life in a short period of time and dying. That is a rational choices that you make through rational calculus. The choices that we are talking about in today's debate is not rational. There's no sort of calculus, because it is only and only based on religion, and that's the only reason why you're denying it. And that's when we opt in and we say, no, we are not going to do this. And I'll be talking about two things in today's debate. Firstly, I'll be talking about why religious practices have changed over time, but death is irreversible. Secondly, I'll be talking about why the state can intervene when you're causing unfair treatment to the child. And yeah, before I move on,
there's a principal concession that you can actually deny treatment based on whatever you want through chemotherapy. Then if they deny chemotherapy because of religion, what's the problem?
If they deny chemotherapy because of religion, then no, we're not going to allow it. If religion, that's the whole debate, that's the stance that we are taking. We are preventing religious exemption from all medical procedures. If you're denying any sort of treatment that could save your life and better the society, then we reject it. If it's only religion. But if you have other reasons, then it's a different debate. First, I've been talking about why religious practices have changed over time. So you need to understand, religions are very subjective and arbitrary, and they have changed over time. For example, before this, when a woman is caught with adultery, we stone them. But now we no longer commit that practice in certain countries because we have changed our interpretation. And in the past, in Christianity, in the Bible, the word slavery, the interpretation of the word slavery caused the Christians to invade a certain group of I can't remember the name. But the point is, they realized that it was wrong and they changed it. They changed the definition. Right now, whatever interpretation that you are talking about could be changed in the future. Maybe one day, Jehovah will see that we are going to change the interpretation because it is not beneficial for us. But at that point of time, if there are a few individuals who have rejected medical treatments that is vital for their life being saved, even when the Jehovah Witnesses have already changed the interpretation, which is probable, this group of individuals have already died. Death is irreversible. But the changes of religious practices could be changed. So which side do we err to? Because this is something that's so arbitrary and it can be changed. But death is permanent and it cannot be changed. And we say the state should err on the side of caution and not allowing them to die on something that is so subjective and so arbitrary that could change in the future. And that's the conclusion answer. Secondly, I'll be talking about why the state has the right to intervene, the community has the right to intervene once you're not fair to your child. Firstly, you need to understand the right. When you are having a child, it's not an ownership, it's a guardianship. Your right is not permanent to that child. When you fail to provide a certain level of expectation that the society requires, the state will intervene. When you abuse your child, the state will intervene. When the level of care that you're providing falls below the standard that the community has set, we can intervene because it is not fair. Right now, when you're denying one of the most basic rights for a child, when you're denying medical treatment for a child to be vaccinated solely because of religion, then we say you have failed to give one of the most essential rights to the child. Because we need to understand, the child is under the parent, so it is a guardianship. They cannot stand up against the parent. They are forced into living a suboptimal level of care because they are denied medical treatment solely because of religion. And when the parents does this, we tell you this is wrong. We have intervened many times. When you fail to give the proper level of care, when you have low income, when you can't provide for a child, we intervene. We take your child to care center or foster home. And right now, once you can't provide them the medical treatment, once you are so ignorant because of your practices, because of your sole practices, you're affecting a child that has nothing to do, we can intervene. Because we can intervene, and we should do this because we have to protect the child. And if a parent's belief harms the child, we can enter because it is a guardianship, not an ownership. And I've given you example of it. At the end of the debate, what matters is the people. When they are refusing medical treatment solely because of their religious practices that would otherwise materialize into their life being saved, we intervene. But secondly, and also important that they never want to talk about, when we're talking about the collective good of society. When you taking a vaccine affects society. When you not taking a vaccine also affects society. And that's the point in which states can intervene to make sure the collective good of society is protected and that your religious practices can take practice. We are not banning all religious practices nonetheless. We are only banning it once it harms yourself and it harms the society. We would like to hear some responses.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. To continue the debate for side up, can I invite Deputy Leader of Opposition? Here.
and gentlemen, we believe in the maximization of happiness. And if my right to practice religion brings me happiness, why should the state deny that right? That is the stance coming from side government, right? But before I move on to my substantives, because they really they criticize us on not responding on the effect on society, my whole substantives will be on that. But before I move on to that, let's move on to my rebuttals first, because they told us on how the state's this role of the government or the state's duty to infringe on your right of religion if it brings you harms. But then we are talking about in this debate people who have a close attachment to this religion. So you need to operate this debate based on people who do profess in religion, people who are devout in religion. But in events where you are in the brink of death, should the state have the right to save their life or not? But we tell you, if you deny this right for them to die in the way that they want to, you are punishing them for something that they believe in. We tell you that in order for you to maximize your happiness, the kind of happiness that you deem fit in your life, that the state should cater to that. No, thank you. I will expound more on that in my other rebuttals, because they want to talk in the context of children. We don't think that children is in the context of today's debate. Why? Because the state can take away your right of guardianship of your children if you are not deemed as fit to cater to your children, for instance, right? So, for instance, if you're if you're divorced with your if you're divorced and you are being given guardianship to your parent, a spouse, to cater for their children, if you are not deemed fit, the state has an active right to take away, because these are individuals who can't even rationalize in the first place. But we are talking about people who are in the brink of death and they can already rationalize the kind of decision that this is my right to religion and I want to practice this religion, and if I do not want to live based on what I believe in, that is justified. Children is not in this debate. No, thank you. Secondly, they give us examples. How about there are okay, so they give us these examples on the effect of society, how they told us how we did not respond on this, right? We think this doesn't make any sense, because when we talk about on the brink of death, you are only affecting yourself on an individual level, and you don't affect a collective society. We don't think this makes any sense, because if you die for yourself. Who else am I affecting? Other spectrum of society. So we don't think that makes any sense, right? Because vaccination doesn't integrate or fit into this debate. But secondly, we told you a large substantive coming from Muhammad on your right to identity and why this is extremely important. Because these are the people who opt into this kind of religion. These guys, if you deny this right, they will opt into other avenue that doesn't opt into avenue that might even harm themselves. We think that the state always glorify your right to practice certain religion, and we think under your side you will antagonize these people even more. So let's move on to my substantives, right? Rebuttals will be integrated, but before that, sure.
Do people change religion even if they're devout?
Yes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we need to operate in a debate where people who are devout in their religion, and if they want to reject those kind of rights for me to die as I should, then we tell you it's okay. But if you're not a devout and you want to opt into actually I want a surgery, then we're okay with that. But if you want to reject those kind of treatment that might save your life, and the state we think the state should affirm that, because we think that the state should provide myriad of choices for people to self-actualize. That is the right that is duty of state to cater to different spectrum of individuals that is within your country. So let's move on to my substantives. The perception of society that is constructed through abolishing religious exemptions. Who am I going to talk about in today's debate? Two stakeholders: people within the religion and profess this religion, people who are devout, but secondly, the society that perceive this religion after. So firstly, the people within the religious community. Because now, state is actively seen as denying the right of you to practice religion. Now it is seen that the state is the kind of like self-actualization that they want to materialize. Because this will be then seen as an imposition to their religion. You deny their right to self-actualize. When in the first place, government has the role to cater to each spectrum of individuals that lie upon your government. That's why we have that's why we have equality or right to religion, or right for you to self-actualize in different spectrum, right? Because we are talking about minorities, ladies and gentlemen. For instance, the Jehovah Witness, who already feel that they're different from other individuals in that country. When you pass this thing, they feel as though that they're rejected by these people and rejected by the government and rejected by the majority of the people. They then feel a sense of detachment from the government. For instance, in Malaysia, where people, the classic Christianity within Malaysia has already feel that they're very detached, because there's a strong stigma by the government that you can't even put a cross in that building. We think in that very sense, the cohesion of that society will then be disrupted. But secondly, let's talk about the outside community, right? So now you have the narrative that you create within the outside society, that you reject this sort of practices, that this religion is wrong, that this religion is bad, because you're painting the picture and exacerbating the narrative that you die for this religion is bad. When in the first place, your intent for you to profess and devout in that religion because you want to self-actualize in you believing that God is a form of happiness, and you are telling society that is bad. Life is not being defined just as you being alive, ladies and gentlemen. The benchmark of you living is the capacity to use that to shape your life. We believe, under your side, you're blaming a religion and you create a stigmatization, and people constantly antagonize the religion based on that. With that, Mr. Speaker, we oppose.
Thank you, Deputy Leader for Opposition. To end the debate on the substantive portion of Gov's case, can I have Government with here?
It is important to note in this debate, we are debating from the perspective of the state. A few issues in today's debate, but the four most important ones are these choices to reject treatment, rational choices from the perspective of a state. They said that states acknowledge you wanting to die as a matter for your religion, that you choose to die for your God, it is legitimate. That's not true. We don't allow you to self-harm. We don't allow you to harm others for your religion. We denounce cults who ask their members to commit mass suicide just because they think Jesus is passing through a UFO, and that by dying we can go to the UFO. We arrest these leaders. We denounce these beliefs as illegitimate, and by allowing these medical exemptions, you are condoning those beliefs. We think that it's not the step ever for the state to take. And then harms to yourself. We do not allow you to harm yourself on the street, to burn yourself on the street, or to commit mass suicide, right? Harm other people. If your religious belief involves letting your children run around unvaccinated, or you yourself go around unvaccinated to contract diseases and spread to other members of the society, we also think that is illegitimate because it's also a third-party harm. Now, and then they said, how is it different from making informed decisions like to reject chemotherapy for other reasons except religion? We believe that these are rational choices made by individuals without the influence of religion. We believe that religion often influence your rational thought, right? For example, people join ISIS, people join cults all the time, do crazy stuff. We do not say, oh, that is rational, you might have your own choices. It's not different from wanting to do things for legitimate reasons. We say no, because this religion, it vitiates your rational calculus. It changes your rational calculus because you believe in something that is not a priori, right? We think a state should always prioritize things that are a priori, should not actually condone people when people do things for unreasonable actions, such as a secular state cannot side with any religious narratives, right? Sit down. But the most important thing is this. Religious beliefs change with time, but loss of life is irreversible. I might be a Christian today, I might be a Muslim tomorrow, right? The thing is this. The state's role is that since we know that religion makes individuals make irrational choices, states should disallow people from making irrational choices because of their religion that will cause permanent harm to them, because they might well not believe in this kind of religion in the future. The state's role is not to condone you when you sell out for your religion, but to make sure you stay alive to be able to make a choice to opt out of your religion in the future, so you do not regret this choice in the future, right? Then, furthermore, they say that we are denying them the right to self-actualize. That is not true. We allow you to practice your religion, but we are not okay for you to self-actualize the extreme ends of your religion. That is why we do not allow you to perform all the interpretations in the Bible when it causes harm to yourself, when it does self-harm, right? Furthermore, we also prevent people from committing suicide, even though it is very much what they want, because we believe that they are not rational when they want to do that. Therefore, state always has the right to prioritize the life of a citizen, right? Before we move on to my second issue, yes, Mohammed.
Let me get this straight. You said before that state respect your right to religion, so that in the long run you can opt out of the religion, saying that religion is crazy.
Yes, because we have to make sure that these people actually survive to not want to harm themselves at the end of the day. For example, if these people, they fully believe that by joining ISIS, they are self-actualizing, we say, no, that's not a form of self-actualization, and as a secular state, we have a right to make sure you do not make that irrational decision, right? Secondly, the duty of the state, and when do states supersede the choice of individuals? We tell you a secular state always have cannot side with any form of religious interpretation. We told you that sometimes individuals make irrational choices all the time, and that the state has a duty to impose the right choice on these individuals. We gave you the example of EPF, for example. States know that people might not want to save for their retirement. States know that that choice is actually harmful for them in the long run. Therefore, state impose things such as a compulsory pension fund, deduct a certain amount of money from your salary to save for your retirement, right? We think that states make rational decisions and force rational decisions on individuals all the time. States know that when people drive or drunk, or when people drive without a seatbelt, we know that it is harmful for them. Therefore, state impose laws that make sure you put on a seatbelt before you drive, right? Those are examples where state prevents individuals from making irrational choices, right? Yes, before moving on.
Wearing a seatbelt is not something that the religion says that you need to do.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. When people make choices that harm themselves because their religion asks them to, we believe that it is the state's role to make sure they do not make that choice, right? Thirdly, are children in this debate? Yes, very much so. Parents have the right to dictate the medical treatment of the child. Parents also have the right to vaccinate the child. The problem is that we often see parents trying to enforce these choices because of their own religious beliefs onto their children. We believe that it's illegitimate, and state should always treat the child as a secular person before adulthood. But even after adulthood, the state should make sure they only make rational choices and not make irrational choices that harm themselves at the end of the day. Thirdly, third-party harm. So what third-party harm is caused in today's debate? Firstly, to society. When you do not vaccinate yourself and you vaccinate your children, you are causing third-party harm to society, right? But moreover than that, what is the message to society that we send out? By allowing this kind of religious practices, we are telling society that dying for your religion is a legitimate choice to make, right? So that state should always deny bad interpretations of religion, especially a secular state who cares about the well-being of its people. But allowing we are complicit every time someone dies just because they do not want, they believe that it's time for God to ask them to die, right? We tell that state is more than happy to take on this burden of committing a sin onto their own hands because we do not opt into this religion. And we believe that in the end of the day, these individuals, at the very least, they will still stay alive and they will remain blameless because they did not opt to prolong their life, but it's the state who enforce it into them. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is this: these individuals are alive, Mr. Speaker. So what did we tell you today? Firstly, we told you that states have a right to supersede religious belief when it brings harm to the individual. We tell that the prerogative of a secular state and doctors is to always help these people, and if we have to take the burden of sit on our hands to prolong their life. At least they are still alive at the end of the day. At least they are blameless. That is a win-win situation, right? We told you that to a court cause third-party harm to society, and we consider that the message a secular state to send to society is that self-harm is never a rational decision. And for this reason, we are very proud to propose.
Then the substantive portion of the debate, can I invite opposition? Okay.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about this debate. This debate is about if a person want to opt into this procedure and if he consented into it, and why shouldn't we allow him to do that? I'm going to talk to you about three things. I'm going to talk to you about rationality, and I'm going to address their problem on society, and I'm going to tell you on why their case is bad and why we should reject it. So because their case is all about this, like if I want to deny chemotherapy because I don't want to be bald, then I'm allowed. But if I want to deny it because I believe in my religion, then I shouldn't be allowed. Like that's the whole part of their case. They have to tell us on why there are other reasons and why it should be allowed, but religion exclusively is so dangerous that you cannot allow it. So let's talk about their benchmark of life, because we think that life is not defined just by you being alive. We think that life is defined as you having the way and having the option to shape your life the way you want it. And if these people choose religion, then we say their choice is valid, and that's the reason why we have to recognize that it is very important. Let's talk about their example. Their example hinges on one thing: vaccine. That's the only thing that they want to talk about, and we have to reject that because that's too exclusive and isolated. But let's talk about this. They are concerned about consent because they want to talk about the perspective of state. And why is that? Because these are people living their own life. So why do the state then suddenly have the autonomy to decide on how you should lead your own life? Because I'm going to tell you on why informed choice actually exists. Because they want to talk about irrationality, but does the consideration come from the irrationality? I'm going to challenge that characterization, because the consideration usually comes post the disease, because they decided to embrace the religion and shape their life to go in alignment with this religion. Especially when it concerns your life, there is always a very heavy check and balance, because you know the trade-off of you embracing this religion might concern your life. And that's the reason why there's a lot of consideration, there's a heavy consideration, and it takes a long time for you to decide whether or not you want to embrace this way of the religion. So we say that informed choice do exist, because the trade-off is so big, people will always consider it for a long time. And that's the reason why we told you that informed choice exists. Because some people actually rather die. If some people actually rather die, then it is their choice, and the state have to respect that, especially when there is no third-party harm. Because states have always respected that and always intervene when there is a third-party harm. That's the reason why some states legalize suicide, because they realize that when there's no third-party harm, you do not have the right to dictate on how these people should live their life. But even if the decision is made while they have the disease, they didn't have to prove that just because the person have a disease, suddenly they don't have the mind at all. They cannot make any decision at all. Because we say they still can understand that if they embrace the way of the religion, they will die. People can still understand that even though they are sick and dying. So we say that if they still choose to die, they have made the informed choice, and we say that's the reason why it is justified, and we have to respect that. Sit down. Okay, and then they want to talk about they want to talk. They have a heavy concern about children, but they have a principal concession on how when it concerns children, it's only a guardianship by the parents, not an ownership at all. That was said by the speaker. So we say that, but even if under their case, children will still be harmed. Why? Because now parents have always been comfortable because they know that they can choose what kind of life that their children want. But once you take away this religious exemption, the parents know that they cannot control the life of the children, then they will aggressively lobby to the children to go against the state, to make them feel a resentment, or to make them to guilt trip their children into not doing that. So what's the problem with that? It's a problem in the long run, because you make the children feel that they have to fight against their parents, that they have to believe in their parents and reject the state because that's what their parents wanted. So in the long run, you create parents who aggressively lobby to the children that whatever the state is telling you is bad. So you create people who doesn't want to think about it, and people who will reject the state just by the virtue of them feeling the resentment against the state because the state are forcing you to go against your parents. So that's how you create parents and you create a worse circumstances for the children. So let's talk about how they talk about religion is oppressive. But you cannot call it oppression when people cherish it, when people want this, and you cannot call that an oppression because people think of it as a way of life. And the only reason why they are alive, because we are not talking about normal everyday people. We are talking about people who are devoted, who feel like their life is about the religion, and who feel like the religion is the reason why they are alive and why they should be alive. So we think that when you do that, like Mahira told you, you harm their self-actualization. You create a detachment from them and the society because they feel that their life is a curse, that they would want to die for the religion, but the state is not allowing you to do so. Before I go into my next assessment.
Do states have a right to intervene when individuals make irrational choices under influence of religion, such as joining ISIS?
That's a harm to the society because when you join ISIS, you go to war with other countries. But what we're talking about is your own right to life. You are the only party who are involved here, and that's the reason why the state should not intervene because there is no third party harm at all. So let's talk about the other concern about religious interpretation. That is irrelevant within this debate because you cannot tell Muslims that we don't want you to wear hijab just because it might change in the future. Because what they embrace is on the status quo, and that is what they want to subscribe to. If they interpret it that way and they subscribe to it because they believe in it, then we don't see any problem on why that should be problematic. Because some people cherish the idea of living and dying for the religion because that is part of their identity. And when you deny that, they got detached from their life because now they live their life feeling like they are cursed, that they have a lot of regrets on going through that surgery. These are not the things that the state have the right to dictate on. You don't have the right to dictate this accursed life to the devotees just because they think that people should value life over the religion when some people actually would choose religion over life. So we say that these are not the things that state should dictate to people. These are things that people should choose because it concerns their autonomy and their own life, and that's the reason why it's something that only people can decide for themselves. So, and the last thing is that the government have equated the right to life to being alive, but we say that the equation is wrong. That the right to life does not equal to just you being alive. It's the right for you to be able to shape the life that you wanted. Because the state have never dictated what kind of job that you should take, what kind of life you should live. These are the things that the state leave to the people because they recognize that the people need some autonomy on how they wanted to shape their life, how they wanted to live their life. And that's the reason why the state have always respected that. They have always allowed us to do what we want unless there's a third party harm. So we say the parallel can be run in this case. When there's no third party harm, when it only concerns your own autonomy and your own life, we don't see any problem and we don't see why the state then should intervene. And because of that reasoning, because we think that these are not normal people, these are devotees who live for their religion, and these are people who think that their religion is more important than their own life, we oppose.
Thank you. Whip. Can we now have opposition reply? Here.
If joining ISIS means that I get a medical procedure to become a cyborg, I'll become a cyborg, but not to join ISIS or Islam. The thing is, the kind of example that they give never actually relate to third-party harm regarding medical procedure. We told you medical procedure when life-threatening affects you, yourself, and how you live your life post the procedure as well. Drinking and driving is never about religion. Vaccination is never about religion, and we already told you that we respect that choices as long as you draw the line of no third-party harm. Even if you want to make your child a martyr for religion, governments don't see that as it is and still mandate vaccination. And we told you from the first page that denounced half of their case on children. But what's the other half? The other half is about one. Let's take how the third speaker come up saying that religion is irrational, religion is bad. We respect that irrational and bad decision so that you can denounce it. I'll moderate it with how the first two speakers comes up here. The thing is, irrespective of how their point talk about that religion is altruistic, will be interchangeable throughout time, that religion is actually an opt-out option. They never actually told you that you can actually respect other people's choices you need to respect other people's choices in the medical procedure. They even conceded to the fact that you can make choices on not taking chemotherapy because it's like a long-term harm that even causes death. But if you deny it because of religion, you can never say so. Because they agree to some of them agree that religion is part of their identity. Some of them do not agree that religion is part of their identity. You do not know whether or not. But the thing is, they never denounce the fact that you need to respect the choices people make before that surgery occurs. And that's something that we want to talk about. And they never engage. Other than that, we also talk about how society outside or inside will perceive that government is mandating that certain religious practices is bad and would denounce part of that religion, saying that that religion is bad. Or even outside society think that that state is an extremist state that denies certain religion from practicing their right. Those are also things that they never engage upon. We see that third-party harm will never occur if it's your own choices on your own life. But living post-life, we told you that they will live a life of regret, a life of curse, a life that the government thinks and mandate their life, and in rejecting the society as a whole around them. Those are the kind of life that you cannot actually self-actualize, and those are not the kind of life that they say it's a right to life in the first place. We never see an argument saying that why you need to respect that choices. They only say that because it's the role of state to actually make sure these people live a life. But I don't think living a cursed life, living a life that rejection from society is the life that they want to live. They only say that it's because of third-party harm. We don't see that you choosing to die or you choosing to self-actualize within your religion and maximize your own happiness causes other people to be harmed or other people to die in the first place. Children should not be a stakeholder because that's already mandatory in the first place. But what comes to you, choices you make with medical procedure on your own, then what is the harm towards other society? They never answer. Why cannot we respect that choices people make? They never answer. Even if you do that, why cannot we say that that religion is still a part of the choices and a part of the identity that they make, and they want to create a happiness because of it? They still never answer. A devotee will live the life of religion, and we don't see that life of religion is something as irrational and bad if they see that that's the life that they want to live. Thank you.
And to end the debate, can I have government reply? Here.
Before I move on to my reply speech, we think it's very disgusting coming from some opposition to totally brush under the carpet the whole point on vaccination on children that we have extensively talked to you about, because that is a third-party harm to a child that has never been able to consent, never had the platform to tell their parents, Mom, I want this vaccination because it affects my life, because it affects the school I go to and how people receive me. We think that's morally abhorrent and disgusting coming from their side. Before I move on, our burden into this case was this. We were here to tell you that it is an illegitimate choice when a person under the influence of religion tells the doctor, I do not opt into this medical treatment simply because I'm a Jew, simply because I'm a Muslim, simply because I'm etc. and whatnot. Two main issues in today's debate and why we want both issues. First, religion and the state. Number one, identity in religion, because this was the main crux of the entire, all three speakers' speech, right? We do not deny them the right to practice and perform a religion, for example, praying, celebrating a festival, and etc. We told you there are other ways you can manifest your identity in a religion. For example, your behavior, the way you dress up. For example, the Jews, they have certain types of clothing and etc. this choice in medical treatment is an element, one small portion in your life, and you don't always make that form of choice in practicing your religion anyway. So we think on our side of the house, it's legitimate to revoke that choice under your identity when it comes to harming yourself and harming society as a whole. We think that you have other ways to manifest your religion. We are fine with that. Opposition then said, we suppress that, oh, our government is suppressing their choices because they'll feel regretful, they'll never be able to maximize your happiness. Our reply was simple. State does not have the obligation to ensure maximum happiness for every individual in the country. If that is the case, then every government's policy will be contingent upon the emotion and sentiments of people in society. We reject that characterization. We do not agree with that. More often than not, many public policies enacted by the government is not based on sentiments or emotion. It is based on what is the collective good for society. What from a government's position, what is the rationale behind enacting these policies benefiting the society? Two main things from our side. The harm to individuals are tangible and the harm to society is obvious under our side. We told you that the state comes in and intervenes when you are on the verge of committing suicide, because we do not agree with you practicing a religion to so far and to the extent of you harming yourself in the process. That is why committing suicide it's against the law in most countries. Second thing, we also told you that the harm to society is pertinent, that Hindus burn their wife in the name of their religion. People join ISIS in the name of Islam. People join all these forms of practical ways to manifest their religion, which brings harm to them and society. Vaccination was one of them. They rejected that. Now, they said that, children being unvaccinated, it's fine, it's already mandatory under the government's policy. No, government still gives parents the right to choose whether or not to vaccinate their children. And parents more often than not opt out of that system because, you know what, I'm Christian, I do not allow my child to do so. That's the third party harm, because you allow your children to run around being unvaccinated. We told you, they wanted to contend with this, right, that this entire debate is about an individual dying, you voluntarily chose that, and etc. Same like committing suicide. You voluntarily chose to commit suicide, but still government steps in and tells you that it is wrong because the choices you make here are irrational because you are dictated by certain external factors. Second point, choices and rationality. They talk about chemotherapy, their only point. Okay. If you are making a choice not under the influence of religion, for example, chemotherapy, there are various other choices. For example, you do not want to go through the length of the pain, the time frame to get better under chemotherapy, then we say it is fine because you're continuing to the fact that you do not want to live a suboptimal life. We're okay with that. But if you tell the doctor, I do not want to opt into chemotherapy because I'm a Christian, because I'm a Jew, because I'm a Muslim, we will not accept the form of answers given by these people because they're clouded by the religious judgment. If the state allows this, the message they send to the society at large is even worse, because now you give validity and legitimacy to other people to deny medical treatment by using the name of religion. We think for all those reasons, to protect your own interests in society, to protect the collective good of people through medical treatments, we think there's imperative the state intervenes and draw the line in which you can practice and perform your religion and not inflict harm to anybody else. With that, in fact,
Thank you guys for the debate. Cross-eye, shake hands, and leave the room as quickly as possible.
Thank you.